My son James was born 15 weeks early with stage 5 retinopathy of prematurity. This is a complicated way of saying that he was blind right from the very beginning. Complete blindness. He can't even detect light. The doctors had figured this out within a few days of his birth. They thought I might take it badly, but the truth is, I was so ecstatic with how the doctor began the sentence that it seemed like a very minor issue. Your son is going to be okay, but I wasn't concerned with the but, not in the slightest. I have to admit, I didn't know much about how to raise a blind child. I didn't do as much research as I should have. For example, I've been told that I should have positively discussed his blindness from the very beginning. I should have said things like, "Remember, James, because you can't see, you're gonna have to try things a little slower, okay?" I should have made him understand that he's missing a sense that most people have, but that it's okay. He can still find other ways to do things. I ignored the issue. I tried too hard to shelter him from it. I would think back to how delicate he looked the day he was born. So tiny, like he was barely clinging to life. How the doctors told me, "We'll try our best," that day. But I could see the doubt in their eyes. I was still just so happy James was with me that I couldn't bear telling him that he was different, couldn't bear disappointing him. To explain that he's missing something very important. It's not that I kept James as a social recluse, locked up in his bedroom or anything crazy like that. We would always go out to parks and beaches. Family was always over and interacting with James. They knew not to discuss the blindness issue. However, as best I could, I was trying to give James a normal childhood. James is now 5 years old, and just yesterday, after all this time, the issue was finally brought up. I thought I had done such a great job of sheltering him, of hiding his blindness from him. I thought he didn't know he was any different than most people. But then last night, just before his bedtime, James walked over and hugged me. I could tell he was very upset about something. He began sobbing into my shoulder. After a moment, I quietly asked him, "What's the matter, James?" He sniffled, then barely choked out, "Dad?" He sniffled again, and then in between sobs and tears, he said, "Am I ever going to be able to see?" I was taken completely aback. I hadn't ever even rehearsed in my head what to say in this situation. I had thought this talk would be at least a year away. I didn't know what to do. Stuck on my heels, I responded the only way I knew how at that point. Something I had avoided for so long. The truth. "No, James," I said. "The doctors say you will never be able to see." He cried in my arms for another minute or so, and then finally said, "Can you just take me to bed, Dad?" I agreed to. I lay him in his bed and told him, "Wait here just a minute, I have something for you." I went to my bedroom and pulled out a present I had been waiting to give to him. I went back into his room and handed it over. "What is it?" he asked. "It's a pendant," I told him. "You wear it around your neck if you want." "Here." Gently I took his hand. "Do you feel the bumps?" "What are they?" "Yes, it's called Braille. You'll be able to use it to read things and to count. Go on, feel them." "What shape does it make?" "Don't know." You look perplexed. "It's in the shape of a heart. It means that I love you very much. That there are many people who love you. So someone will always be here to help you and protect you. So whenever you're sad, just hold on to that pendant and think of us, okay?" He smiled. "Also," I continued, "there are lots and lots of people in the world who can't see, just like you. And there are plenty of things they learn which make their lives easier and more comfortable. But things like Braille, you're gonna start learning some of these new things right away, okay? When I left his room, he looked in my general direction. He said in a much more upbeat voice than before, "Good night, Dad." "Good night, James. I'll see you in the morning." I left his room, walked down the hallway, and got into bed. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I felt a couple tears stream down my face. James seemed fine when he got up this morning. He went about his day as usual. After breakfast, he was sitting on the couch listening to his favorite shows. I went upstairs to his bedroom and went through my usual routine, making his bed and gathering his laundry. And then I noticed that the air vent cover seemed different, as though it had been taken off and hastily put back on. Had James been messing around at night? I decided to pull off the cover and look inside, and there it was. A brown case approximately 8 by 12 inches. It was about 4 inches thick with a small black handle on the top. There was also a strange foreign language written on it, one which I had never seen before. I took it out and opened it. The first thing I noticed was the pendant. He had placed it in the box, maybe for safekeeping. I picked it up anyway and smiled, but then I noticed something else. I almost screamed at what I saw. I held my hand over my mouth. Shock was already setting in. I must have turned ghostly white. I could feel my skin crawl, the hairs on my arms and legs standing on end. It took me half a minute to realize the full extent of what I was looking at, of how impossible it was, let alone how terrifying it was. A neatly drawn picture. It wasn't professionally made or anything like that, but done well enough that I could decipher what exactly was happening. James was in it. It looked just like him. He was wearing the pendant that I had given him last night, one hand feeling the Braille heart on his pendant. In his other hand was a large knife, and on the ground was me, clearly me, sliced, covered in blood, dead. "Daddy?" I heard from just outside the door. I quickly put the picture back in the box, and then placed it in the air vent. "Come in, James," I said loudly. I hadn't processed this yet. I had no idea what I thought about it. I tried to go about my day. James seemed no different than usual. I didn't bring the picture up, not yet anyway, but how could James draw it? The picture had far too much detail for someone who's been blind his whole life. The dead person on the ground looks just like me, and he's never even seen me before. He's never even seen anything before. I remember watching James playing with his toys. Can he actually see? Is he just faking it? How is this possible? How could a 5-year-old who was born without sight somehow gain his vision back while continuing to fake his blindness? What would he have to gain by faking it?